The first step in life authoring is to take serious the perhaps confusing messages from inside. Doing this will open your mind to another dimension or dimensions, to a deeper and more holistic vision of living. The old sages knew details about the fantastic interactive nature of life, its paradoxical complexity in simplicity, and the possible ways to interact with life in a way to create in much the same way as nature creates. This is a learning process, an extended and multifaceted one, and generally one that takes many years or even decades of diligent work. Life authoring can be a beginning for this larger perspective of learning that you may want to design for your life. But you can as well remain with the material that is presented here in this guide and move on in more practical and less philosophical ways, for example in your school, business or career. This is completely up to you, and there is no value judgment at all connected to this process. Our individual development is unique, and there is always a reason why one wants to develop this and another that other talent or potential. And there is no area in life that is better or higher than another. I namely deny the distinction between ordinary life and spiritual life that many people today tend to emphasize. This is an artificial distinction and one that is tautological. Life is all of that and more. The unique thing about life is its variety and its unending change. To divide life into different sections alters the subtle magic that is inherent in holistic living into a set of rigid behavior patterns, the typical way modern man is living. You cannot be productive in new ideas and original ways of doing things and of realizing yourself if you cut off this deep magic of life, if you rationalize it away, if you raise off the roots of that emerging new reality every day from the seeds that your potential has planted. Another reason why creative energy is stuck is attachment to the past, other people, the family, the partner or children, the parents, groups, organizations, or the nation, your country. All these attachments consume vital energy, and creativity is but that, energy. How to dissolve these attachments? How to empty you from this garbage? It is difficult, if not impossible, to do that in one day. I needed about 15 years. Meditation greatly helps in this process. This is because thought has a natural or physiological tendency to attach to its content, and the content of thought is the past. Thought cannot by itself leave the boundaries of its content. It is confined within the limits of the past, the vécu, the remembrance of what one has lived, and what thus is dead. This is not a negative or fatalistic opinion, but a fact. Thought cannot master thought. There must be some kind of higher authority that can direct and renew thought. This authority does indeed exist. It is the self. The self is not bound by thought, since it is not bound by time and space. The self is not the accumulation of experience. It is not thought. It is not the remembrance of past hurt and pleasure. Neither is it originating from this life or from past lives. The self or higher self is beyond life and death. It is not the transformed, but the transformer. Not the learner, but the teacher. Not the actor, but the director. Some people, when I get into this subject, ask me if my vision of the self is what in Hindu philosophy is called Atman. The answer is that there is no answer. It is of no importance how you call it. I can confirm that your intuition is correct, that there is in fact some parallel, and that indeed, generally speaking, the religious teachings of Hinduism bear some striking logic that one misses in other religious teachings. Yet my knowledge about the higher self is not derived from tradition, but more from the teachings of the most non-traditional sages, first of all Maharshi and Krishnamurti, and also from Western sources, theosophical teachings, and, I do not hide it, from channel sources. And yes, I almost forgot, Edgar Cayce's teaching also had a strong impact upon me. I explained it once to a friend who asked me to clarify this question for her. I wrote to her the following, I quote, "Concepts are vessels and carry messages. They are themselves not the messages. I do not offer a vessel, since the vessel is provided by your own inner guide. From a certain level of spiritual development, we do not need vessels anymore. From a certain level of spiritual development, we can directly receive the messages. I have rejected the vessels since my childhood, which enabled me to advance more quickly on direct perception, which I am now teaching, joining a tradition that was practiced several thousands of years ago and then destroyed by moralistic thinking, which has got us where we are now, bare of any true and valid life philosophy that understands life instead of judging it." End of quote. The self is not the ego, but a higher, eternal energy code or pattern that is distinct and individuated, and it flows within the ocean of the primordial cosmic energy, so that there is a living exchange between all beings. Most Western people call it the soul. The self contains all the wisdom of the universe. It is the individuated aspect of the soul. I do not know if self and soul are identical or separated, but I would say that this distinction is of a mere theoretical value. The higher self or inner guide is our source of wisdom, creativity, and prosperity. The ego or shell can touch it once it is connected. However, we need no ism to understand, to directly perceive truth. It is not important if Atman as a concept is valid or not. It is only important what is true for you. We can only grow on what we hold true. And the rest we have to reject, or we can accept it as something that has a certain probability of truth, but that is not of direct relevance for us. To awaken creative thinking and get out of your established concepts, there is no other way than going beyond thought and language. Once you touch yourself by being yourself, you are no more reasoning in terms of concepts and patterns that are made from past experience, but patterns that are universal. New ideas namely come from the realm that hosts this immense reservoir of universal patterns. In order to incarnate these universal patterns, we must mold them into our space-time reality. We do this constantly, however, most of the time without being aware of it. When man created the wheel for the first time, they incarnated the universal pattern of wheel into our space-time continuum. This pattern already long before formed part of that universal pattern library. By receiving an inspiration that did not come from thought, man was able to improve life on earth. With every new invention, it proceeds alike. Thus, practicing direct perception greatly enhances our chances to grasp bits of the essential patterns life is made of.